If you're an author or plan to be one, get excited because this podcast is for you. Book Marketing Mentors is the only podcast dedicated to helping you successfully market and sell your book. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful marketing mavens, then grab a coffee or tea and listen in to your host, international best-selling author Susan Friedmann.
Welcome to Book Marketing Mentors, the weekly podcast where you learn proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips from the masters. Every week, I introduce you to a marketing master who will share their expertise to help you market and sell more books. Today, my special guest is a business acceleration strategist. For the past 21 years, Sue Clement has specialized in helping entrepreneurs expand their visibility, grow their profits, increase their impact, and scale to 6 and 7 figures. Having performed hundreds of live and virtual presentations, Sue's created her signature Masterclass conversion framework, where she and her clients have used to convert clients like crazy and generate up to 6,000 in one 90-minute presentation. Wow. That's amazing. A new friend and colleague. Sue, what an absolute pleasure it is to welcome you to the show. And thank you for being this week's guest expert and mentor.
Thanks for having me here, Susan. I'm so excited to share and to connect with everyone.
Yes. And Sue, you're a genius at helping clients with your special Masterclass conversion framework. And I've had a little taster of that. I really want us to talk about this whole concept of masterclasses. And I think the best place to start is always at the beginning. So let's look at the basics so that we really understand this verbiage and, everybody understands exactly what is a masterclass.
That's a great question, Susan, because so often people kind of get them mixed up because it depends on where you come from and how long you've been in business and how things have changed over the years. But, a masterclass, some people think it's a webinar, masterclass, and there's a bit of a discussion out there. People sometimes think that a webinar is meant to sell and a masterclass is meant to teach. And from my point of view, it doesn't matter really what you call it. They are basically a virtual presentation and they should both teach and sell from my point of view.
And I know that that's something that you really do well. With that in mind, how do you feel that it can help an author with their book and their message?
Well, absolutely. When we think about doing a masterclass, ultimately, a lot of business owners do it because they're looking for a customer, the revenue off of the back end of it. But we're being short-sighted if we just look at it from that point of view, because truly doing a masterclass is a great way for you to use that credibility and become that authority on the topic. It is also a way to get visibility and, of course, to get leads, to build your community, and ultimately to get clients if you're selling something at the end of it. But really, it's truly designed for the credibility and the visibility. I call it the audience and authority building that it provides is incredible.
Is there a percentage of time that you would be sharing your expertise, let's say, and then how much percentage of that time would you spend on that versus how much time would you spend on that talking about maybe a product or a service that you wanted to sell?
I love that you asked that question because, frankly, that's one of the mistakes that a lot of people do. I call it the salesy weirdo. When people, they teach and then they sell. And it becomes very pitchy and they're uncomfortable. The audience is uncomfortable and ultimately it doesn't do what you want it to do. My strategy and the way I teach my clients is that we sell all the way through, but we're not really selling. We're positioning our offer. We're silently selling. And we can sell basically from how we get engagement at the beginning of the masterclass, how we set up the audience so that they are participating and that we get that enrollment and that engagement, how we position ourselves in our story, our hero's journey story, as I like to call it. We have to make sure that we tell people where we come from and that they can see that we are the expert, but also they can understand that we've walked in their path, that we know where they're at, ahead of time. But really, the selling happens through the content. in the stories that you sell and how you pre-sell or pre-handle the objections right off the bat, so that when you get to make your offer at the end, it's not really a pitch or an offer. You've taken the audience on this wonderful journey where you've shared information, where you've told stories, where you've shared testimonials. Then almost by the time you get to the end, they can't wait to hear what your offer is going to be because they're so warmed up. They get to know you. You're credible. They're really looking to buy from you at the end. I mean, that's what one of my clients said to me. She was so amazed when she followed my framework. She goes, I've never done it before, that I had so many people waiting and wanting to hear what I was going to offer them at the end. And when we get to that, then it isn't like we're pitching. We're not really being that salesy weirdo. We are basically just taking the audience on a journey and inviting them to take action.
You know, I love that salesy weirdo. I'm like, that's going to stick in my head. I know. And I've seen you demonstrate this. It's brilliant. And you're absolutely right, because I attended a session where you taught the class and you were demonstrating the skills at the same time while you were teaching this class. I was like, this is brilliant. Perhaps you could give us a little taster of this framework, so to whet our listeners' appetite.
I like to break down the masterclass into 3 key areas. And the first is the opening sequence. Like anything, we've all heard that phrase. And if you do any speaking at all, you know that you need to grab that audience in that first few seconds. They say that the first impressions are lasting. We want to make sure that we have a strong opening where we need to position, we first of all need to engage the audience first before we do anything. We need to bring them on board. We want to take them on this journey with us. So we need to, enroll the audience to participate with us. And then we need to position the topic, what we're going to be talking all about. We need to position ourselves, as I mentioned, the hero's journey story. We need to position the audience so that they feel like they've made a great decision and that they are in the right place. And we need to position the talk so that they get excited to know what's coming, so that they understand that they made a good decision, that they are in the right room, and that they can't wait to hear what you're going to be sharing. My trick is that we want to position the offer, not make it. Just position it at the beginning before we even get into the content. So that's the opening sequence. That's phase 1, so to speak. Then we have the content piece. Choosing what your content is so critical, because if you have content that doesn't align with the offer at the end, you're not going to have the conversions you're looking for. And I'm all about making sure that your masterclass or webinar converts. We have to make sure we select the right content that's going to lead people to wanting our offer at the end. And we tell stories. We all know stories are memorable, they're viral, they're repeatable. Every time we get together with our friends or family members, what are we doing? We're telling stories about our day, our week, our lives, what's going on. And so we want to make sure that we position our content within the story. That's what really makes it engaging and interesting. The people are learning, but they're learning in an enjoyable manner. And they're also, as I mentioned earlier, kind of being sold to at the same time, but they don't really feel like they're being sold to. They're going on this wonderful journey of information and learning. And then finally, the third piece is we need to close off, and that's the closing sequence. And my closing sequence is quite unique. It takes the audience on a journey. We just don't finish our teaching and go, okay, now let's, make an offer. Let's make our pitch. Instead, what we want to do is we want to do a solid review. And then, I call it paint the dream. We want to show them what's possible if they were to take action, and then bring them back to the reality check of where they are, so that when we make the offer, they now see a gap. And, that's one thing when it comes to selling. Your prospects need to be problem aware, and they need to see that there's a gap. If they don't see that there's a gap, if you, overfed them with content, they're not going to take action. It's really about making sure that you position the gap so that they see you as the credible expert that's going to get them from where they are to where they want to get to.
Yeah, because they've got a challenge, whether it's a problem, a challenge, whatever you want to call it. There's something that's not working for them. They're coming to you with the hope that you're going to help them solve this. What I'm hearing is that the content, the stories and everything are positioned around you showing that you are a capable expert and you are the expert, the authority to help them solve that problem. Am I with you correctly?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the content is such a valuable piece. It's not like just throwing anything up against the wall and thinking, oh, I'll just talk about X. We have to make sure that that content is going to take the audience to, they learn some information, but they also learn what they don't know, that they're lacking in some manner. And so when you make your offer, they go, oh my gosh, I'm on one side of the bridge and I want to get to the other side. And you are the person that's going to get me across this chasm. And that's really what the content is meant to do, is to inform, educate them. They need to feel like they've got a small win. That's one of the mistakes, I think, is the content. And it's interesting because we can kind of diminish this as being, oh, I can just teach anything. But it's also not just what the content is, but it's the volume of content. And this was, oh my gosh, Susan, this was my biggest mistake I used to make all the time when I first started speaking. Is I'm kind of, I guess, a teacher, kind of teacher style by method here. And I would really over deliver. It would be like this buffet information. I would take people up and down the buffet. No, there was no food there, but I would actually want to deliver so much content that what happened is at the end, when I wanted to make my offer, there was no gap because people felt that they had everything that they needed. So they would go, wow, fabulous training. Oh, they would rave about me. They'd love it. And they'd never buy from me because they'd go, oh, well, I have so much information. You've given me so much. I'm just going to go and consume this. And then I'll come back. But they never really would come back because they got so stuck in this consumption mode. And actually, it's a disservice because often when people get so much information, they don't take action. A week, a month later, they haven't done anything because they've been so overwhelmed with it, or they've just been so consumed by it that they just don't follow through. And by not following through, they're going to look back at you and think, well, that workshop or that seminar, that masterclass really didn't work for me. And I shouldn't say blame it on you, but they'll hang it on you. And so overfeeding the audience with content is bad. And then just like Goldilocks, underfeeding is just as bad. There's been some people that say, teach them the what and the why, but never the how. Well, I don't agree with that because teaching them the what and the why, talking about the problem they have, they're sitting there going, I know the problem. I have the problem. What's the answer? People come because they want to get an answer. They want to get an insight. They want to learn something. They want to fix something. So if you don't give them any how, they'll leave kind of frustrated thinking that you don't know much because you weren't credible enough. You didn't share enough. You have to be generous enough to give them some information. They don't look at you as that credible expert because they didn't see any of your expertise. So there's always that fine balance of showcasing enough expertise that they want to learn from you, want to take that next step, but also not over-delivering, I should say, so that they feel so fed that they just don't want to do anything else with you. So that content piece is really important. Not only does it need to be the right content that's going to lead people to want your offer, but it has to be the right balance of not too little or not too much.
You've crushed so many thoughts and concepts that I've heard in the past, but one of the things that I really relate to is this idea of overfeeding. I mean, I'm really good at giving away the farm when I do a presentation. The farm, the house, the family, and, everything.
Take the dog.
Yes, take everything. Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, I know I even overwhelm myself and I think, well, they've got to know this and they'll want to know that. You said you give them some of the how, but then my question is, how much of the how would you even give them without, again, giving the farm away?
It is a trick and a bit of an art and science to it where we need to understand that we've helped them in some small way. People need to feel that they have a win, but they still have to see the gap between where they are and where you can take them. If they don't see that gap, they're not going to appreciate the offer. They're not going to take action on the next step. You have to make sure that and I'm not really like suggesting that we hold back information, but we have to make it small enough and really laser in. So making the topic narrower rather than broader will also help you fix it. Like I often call the difference of choice between like a sample platter or a deep dish. I'm talking about pizza there, but my sample platter, for example, I mentioned that my system has 3. We have the opening sequence, the story selling, and then the closing sequence. Well, I could do a masterclass, and the sample platter would be saying, this is the framework, and I could give you a couple tips from each of the categories, but I wouldn't give you enough of any one category. But you would see that there's a journey and that there's a path and there's a process to this. That would be the sample platter, where I just give you little bits of the whole structure of it. Now, on deep dish instead, is I might showcase the whole framework, tell you there's 3 pieces, and I'd say, but today we're only going into the first opening. And we would go deep in the opening, and I would teach you everything you needed to know about the opening, but you still wouldn't know the story selling or the closing sequence. Therefore, you know one piece, but now you recognize there's other pieces that you need to learn. That's the deep dish style. And sample platter is a little bit of everything. You can kind of take it from either version, but just don't go deep sample because then you've given them everything.
Yes. And it's holding back and realizing you don't have to give them everything. But I love that framework that, as you said, you've got 3 parts and either touch on each of them with a little taster of everything, or you take one and go deep, do a deep dive into that one and say, hey, the other 2 come with the package.
Absolutely. People need to see the journey of where they could go.
Yes. And that journey is it's that transformation. Mm-hmm. It's like they have this challenge issue and they don't know how to get from here to there. As you rightly said, you're taking them on this journey and you want to make this journey as smooth and as comfortable and fun and exciting as it can possibly be. Otherwise, why would they want to work with you?
Exactly. You raise a really good point there, Susan, is that they do need to see that there's a journey, and you don't want to overwhelm them, over confuse them, over baffle them, make them feel stupid because they didn't get it. I don't know. I've been in some audiences and I'm not quite catching on, and it doesn't make me feel very secure about wanting to take the next step. We do want to make it consumable. I think the word that I love to use is the content consumable? Can the audience consume it? Do they make sense of it? Can they apply it? Because if they go away with a small win, they're going to be way happier than if they go away with no win or so much that they can't even tell top from bottom.
So you talked about the mistake of either overfeeding or underfeeding. What are some other big mistakes that you see presenters, authors, coaches, trainers, whomever does these master classes? What are some of the bigger mistakes that they tend to make?
Well, the content's a big piece of it. The second piece we've kind of touched on a bit is the salesy weirdo. And I'll go deeper into that because I think a lot of people, we're doing the masterclass because we want to have the audience take the next step with us, whatever that is, whether it's buying something or a service or a product. But what happens is if you're uncomfortable selling, you'll either do, I find, one of 2 things. You'll either overpitch. It's like, but wait, there's more. And then you have all the bonuses and the time limiters, and there's only 5 spaces, and you have to buy in the next 20 minutes. That type of overpitching. That's a salesy weirdo because people are not going to feel engaged or really feel your authenticity. They won't really love you, they won't like you, they're not going to buy from you. Being that aggressive salesperson because you're maybe awkward or you've seen it done that way. There's some people out there teaching that you have to have all these bonuses, and we call it the value stack, and they stack up the value. And often some of those values are, I shouldn't say fake, but yeah, they're elevated, they're inflated. We often kind of want to inflate all this value that we're offering, these bonuses that we're throwing in to make it more enticing. And if we overdo that, people are not going to really feel comfortable or confident in taking action with you. And on the flip side of it, I call it the humble Canadian, where at the end, I've seen so many people do this. They do a great presentation. They've given valuable content, and you know that they're an expert. But then at the end, they go, well, if you want to take action, or if you want to get my program, or you want to do whatever, just, send me an email. They do this very light, soft pitch. It's actually, you can't even call it a pitch. They're too uncomfortable to stand in their power and to invite people to take action. that's kind of being a salesy weirdo, but from a different point of view. It's a very demure salesy weirdo. And they're losing out on opportunities because they don't know how to make the offer. There is a lot to structuring your offer and then how you frame the offer. Often people get stuck on it's kind of the difference between features and benefits. Often people will get stuck and they'll say, well, it's so many sessions and so many minutes, and we get into the logistics. Well, the logistics will never sell for you. It's about the transformation that you're offering, or I like to call it the impact. We always have to, I use the phrase so that, and this is where a lot of my clients get stuck. When I work with clients, where we spend a fair amount of time making sure that the offer is going to fly, that the offer is going to be sound, instead of just saying, my program is going to walk you through XYZ. Well, that's a thing. That doesn't give me a sense of why I'd want it. We always need to put the so that. So it's one thing to say, my program is going to walk you through XYZ so that you'll be able to have harmonious relationships, or so that you'll be able to double your income in 90 days, so that whatever the transformation, the impact that your program or service is offering, that's really key. We want to make sure that how we position our offer is going to be compelling and interesting. And the audience can actually see the transformation and the reason why they'd want it. And when we can position our offer in such a way that we're not underselling, we're not overselling, and we are actually compelling them by using the right wording and the right structuring, that's what makes you not be a salesy weirdo.
I love those. Those two simple words, so that.
Oh, cool. Yes.
And that makes you say, okay, now I've got to, what is that so what? What are they going to get from it? Because as you rightly say, that's the transformation or the impact that you're going to have. And that's what they want. That's what they're going to buy, because they see that. That's almost like the light at the end of the tunnel, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, whatever cliche you want to use there. But yes, I love it. It's just so simple.
And with the so that, often we might take one concept and we might need to ask the so that question 3 or 4 times. I'll often do this with my client. They'll say something and I'll go, well, so that, and they'll answer. And I go, well, yeah, so that, and they'll answer that and go, so that. Finally, after 2 or 3 layers down, we get to the really good gold. That's where the real good stuff is, that we can put in our marketing language and in our offer so that the audience really sees the value to them. It's one thing to say it has succession. Well, why? Well, so that I can cover all the content. Okay, and if you cover all the content, so that, what would that give them? You have to kind of keep digging down deeper and deeper until you really hit the gold. But it truly is the jackpot when it comes to figuring out, how to use the marketing language to position your offer so that the audience really does get the impact, because it truly is about, they have to believe it, they have to see it, and they have to understand the impact that your product or services are going to be offering.
Yeah, very much so. As you were saying that and saying, you do this, keep going with the so that's with your clients. I'm thinking, yes, that reminds me of the 5 why exercise. You ask why, except
Yes.
that it's not as compelling to say, well, why do you do that? So that is much nicer. What I like about everything that you're saying, Sue, and I know that our listeners will relate to this so well, is because they come to me so often and say, I don't like to sell. I don't want to be salesy. And then when you talk about that salesy weirdo, this whole idea that everybody's got this, or many people have this impression of sales, the car salesman and all these sort of negatives one thinks about. And you say the people who overpitch, I mean, it's too salesy. They can't see themselves doing that. And they think that that's what they have to do in order to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is you're making it so much more comfortable so that they feel like, hey, I could do that. And that's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It truly is, the frame that I always go through is, I call it high-low. High intention, low attachment. I have high intention that I can serve the audience. I have a high intention that when I make my offer, that I'm intending that people will take action, and I'm intending that I can give them the results. but I have a low attachment whether they do or don't. Because when you detach from the outcome, it creates less pressure for trying to make the offer. You're just standing in service of the people. And I always think of it as not, we use the word offer or pitch, some people, but really it's an invitation. I'm just inviting people, the right people, and I call forth them. Actually, that's the other piece is when I go to make my offer is I will talk about the value of what I'm offering, but I also then call forth, this is for you if. And you want to set that bar high. If you are ambitious, if you want, and you kind of use the language that people are going, yes, that's me. One of the things I haven't said, but all the way through your whole masterclass, you want to get micro yeses. You want to be asking rhetorical questions so people are saying yes all along, so that when you get to your offer and you're raising the bar and you're telling them this is who it's for and this is who it's not for, and you're inviting them. I like to think of I'm calling forth the right people to take action with me. And I'll often say that. And it's like, this is for you if, and if, and if it's not, that's okay. That's great. There's other resources or other people you can go and work with. But if this is you, then step forward. And I like to, as I say, call forth, create the space, but always have that low attachment to the outcome so that you don't feel so much pressure and you're not therefore putting that pressure through onto the audience as you're making your offer. It's just an invitation. You got to remember that.
That's such a beautiful segue, Sue, into sharing with our listeners about you, about your services, your invitations, as to how they could potentially work with you if they feel that you are the right person to help them.
There you go. Well, this is for you. No, I'm just kidding here. But for anyone who wants to explore how a masterclass could help them in their business, help them either fill a program or sell a product or sell a service, whether you're a coach or a consultant or an expert of any sort, it's a great way to build visibility, credibility, and of course, your list or your audience, and ultimately get clients is do a masterclass. So for any of you out there listening to this and you think, well, gosh, maybe a masterclass would be my next step, then I'm going to invite you to take action with me. I work with people individually, and I also work with people in a group. But today I have a gift for people, and I'm going to share that. It's my money-making masterclass blueprint. And much as I've talked about the opening sequence, the story selling, and the closing sequence, this blueprint walks you through all three of those areas. People can opt in and grab their copy by going to sueclement.com/gift, short and sweet. They can just download it there. There's also a bit of a gift within a gift, like the Russian doll, is that for those people who get the gift and they want to take action, then I invite people to book a strategy call with me. And that's where we hop on the phone and we talk about your specific situation and ultimately to see if the masterclass is your best next step. And if it is, how potentially I might be able to help you and what that could look like. There's kind of 2 in 1.
This is incredible. And listeners, I invite you to re-listen to just that portion, because what Sue did there was demonstrate all the skills, or many of the skills, that she had been talking about throughout this interview. I really invite you to re-listen to that. It was brilliant. I loved it. So I'm going to re-listen to it because the way you said it, and it was so beautiful because, as I said, you demonstrated exactly what you were talking about. So thank you. And we always love it if our guests would share a golden nugget with our audience before we sign off. What's yours?
I guess I want to go back to the high-low. I think that would be my nugget today. The high-low and the so that, which we've kind of surfaced well already, but we all have a gift to share. We're not serving the world if we're hiding it under a bushel, so to speak, if we're not stepping out in the spotlight. Writing a book, and I've written a book, and I'm also in 2 additional compilation books, but writing a book is you putting yourself out there, but doing a masterclass is you putting yourself out there further. And so putting yourself out there in a book is kind of passive. A masterclass is a little bit more active because it's live and it's you. The value of a masterclass is that it's live and it's you, but it also can become an evergreen product, you can create tons more content off of it. And actually, one of my books I wrote from doing some teleseminars back in the day, took the recordings and made them into a book. Masterclass can create great content for yourselves. My golden nugget really is that get out there, get visible, invite people to experience you, because we all have that gift and we need to let that gift out. So often we tend to hide it. It's not as difficult as you think, and you've written a book. So get out there and share your message in a masterclass. And that would be my last thoughts for the day.
That's great. And the fact is that it doesn't matter if, you slip up, you are going to, but you learn from each of these and you redo it and you try again and again, and you get better and better at it. And as Sue said, she didn't start off the way she is now. She learned how to be that. And as me too, I've done the road warrior thing, doing seminars in every city in the US, I think, or almost everyone. It's felt like every city. And you do. If I think back to my first session, it was a disaster, but I lived through it. I lived to tell the tale.
We do. You didn't ask me any of my faux pas, but oh my gosh, that would be another hour, I'm sure. But yes, I have done a lot of master classes that didn't convert, or a lot of speaking gigs. All the lessons that I teach my clients and in my program and in the blueprint, they all are personal lessons that I learned the hard way. Then I went and figured out how to perfect my mistakes and overcome them. That's what I teach clients. And I've been really fortunate. I sought out to learn from the best gurus, from selling from the stage people, because I figured if I'm going to do this and I love speaking, it's like I should learn how to convert. And so I've learned from gurus, invested my time, invested my money, and I've kind of taken them all and blended them together and used my own experiences. And this is what I've done as my framework. But yeah, it's all based on true real life experiences of what worked and what didn't work. And this is my best effort. And it is an evolution. I continue every presentation. I go, wow, I should have. And we all learn from them.
Yes, I always say, well, what would I do if I had to do it all over again? What can I do better? So that's wonderful. Sue, you've shared so much wisdom with us. Listeners, as I said, re-listen to this, please, please, please. You're doing yourself a service, because there's so much golden nuggets all the way through, gems, treasure trove of stuff. So yes, the wisdom has been amazing. Sue, thank you. And thank you all for taking time out of your precious day to listen to this interview. And I sincerely hope that it sparks some ideas you can use to sell more books. Here's wishing you much book and author marketing success.
The time is now to take action and finally build your book-selling empire. And the great news is that Susan is here to help you. Visit bookmarketingmentors.com and sign up for a free 15-minute book marketing strategy session with Susan. She'll help you discover your first steps to marketing and selling your book. Only those who take action are rewarded, so visit bookmarketingmentors.com, and we'll see you again next week.